Bobby, what's going on, my man? How are you?
Matt, I'm doing well. How are you doing today?
Doing great. How do you like my beard? You like it? I'm trying to grow it out, get a little
Growing it
philosopher
out.
look.
I just shaved actually. I felt a little scruffy at work, a little unkempt.
You're a good conservative man. You got the American flag back there. You got the clean
Yeah,
shaven,
look
the
at this beard.
polo. Love
This
it.
used to be in my grandpa's office. Definitely a little dirty. Now it's in my little office.
You got to get up. You got to give us a hug for the flag, Trump. I love the flag. I love the United States.
I love the flag. It's got great colors.
So, what's up, everybody? This is the Ombudsman Report podcast, the OR podcast, as we like to call it. My name is Matthew Spurrier. Follow me on Twitter at Planet Politico. Join with me, as always, my co-hosts, Bobby Juliana at Bobby J Politics. We do this once a week. We talk about news, politics, culture, whatever the hell is irking us that week. And, as is 2018, there's never a dull week.
Never
Bunch
a dull
of stuff
day.
today.
The news cycle is rolling along.
News cycle's rolling along. We want to talk about Iran. We want to talk about this James Gunn Twitter madness. And, we want to sort of lurk into wherever we feel. So, if you haven't been following the news, well, maybe we should start off with the trade tariffs, Bob, since you're the financial man you were just telling me about.
That just came out. We're having a little pre-show conversation. Yeah, so I've been following the trade thing fairly closely. I wouldn't say we're in a trade war yet. We're in a little trade skirmish.
Yeah.
A little trade rhetoric war. Particularly with China. I mean, he's tariffed, I think, $32 billion worth of goods, which is peanuts compared to the whole nest egg.
Mm-hmm.
But he's threatened $500 billion in tariffs, which is a lot.
Yeah.
And that's never going to come to pass. People were comparing this to like how he does tough rhetoric, which we'll get to on Iran or pretty much everyone but Russia. And then when he meets with you place to place, he says kind words right after you're done, like Kim Jong-un. But anyway, with these trade tariffs, he had a meeting today with the representative from the EU. If you remember, it was a national security threat. So Trump had to put tariffs on steel and aluminum. He threatened tariffs on many other goods because we have trade deficits with these countries. Trump doesn't even know what that means. He just thinks we're losing money.
Right.
The trade deficit essentially is we're buying more goods from them than they are than us.
Right, exactly. I have a trade deficit with Chick-fil-A.
Exactly. So when he says, $700 and some billion trade deficit with China, that means if China produces, $10 worth of goods and we purchase $10 worth of goods, we basically buy all 10 of theirs and they buy 3 of ours. So there's a 7-item trade deficit.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it works. So, which you can argue is good or bad. I definitely think that the United States should be, producing more things, which I think is where this stems from for Trump. But, in a global trade environment, you buy from where it's cheapest and everyone benefits from that.
Exactly. Two things. Well, one, you buy from what's cheapest, and we can even, sort of zoom in, I guess, to a local level where you see places like Walmart, for example, where Walmart's the big, evil, bad corporation that runs everybody out of business and destroys smallest towns. But the reality is Walmart makes it cheaper for people to buy products, right? So that's why, you see in these lower income areas, sometimes rural, middle of the country, they'll cut down people's cost of living on things like clothes, on food, on electronics by like 25-30%. So that's a good thing. And so it
and it's not that there's not ramifications of that, like because
Sure.
while they did cut down a whole town's cost of living by 10 or 15%, they're definitely going to put it out of business. At least some of that town, some of the people that own the other stores where people used to get their goods from. But I mean that's just sort of how things work. Like you can't say Amazon isn't amazing, but they put so many companies out of business. So they've also put so many companies in business. It's just how it works.
Well, I was actually I'll have to find this story from a couple months ago, but it was talking about how without Amazon, this guy wouldn't have a business because all of his orders are like international shipping and stuff like that of people who would never have been able to find his product if it wasn't for searching on Amazon. And also, Walmart hires people as well. So, creating jobs. I remember on Netflix, they used to have a documentary. Do you remember, have you ever seen that? And it was talking about the Waltons. I remember when I was a early, freshman, sophomore in college, first getting into politics.
Okay.
I was like, so I guess it's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe, how could anyone support Walmart?
Yeah, old liberal Maddie.
They're just destroying the economy and they're destroying local towns, but The reality is, with all this rhetoric, people vote with their dollar a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And if people wanted small businesses, then they would shop at small businesses. It stinks, but at the end of the day, people are saving money and they're getting a higher standard of living for their dollar. So that's good. Raising all boats, right?
Raising all boats.
Capitalism.
That's what you shoot for. But I mean, these tariffs. Trump's really got to be careful here because, you and I have discussed this a number of times. The economy really propels the president. We've got 2018 elections coming up. 2020, seems far away, but it's not. And if he loses the economy even a little bit, if he even looks like it's stumbling or stalling, you can pretty much kiss him goodbye. Everything else is going to overweigh him. And these trade wars, these trade tariffs, they're risky business. But as of today, just a couple hours ago, the EU and the United States have agreed to. It's always abstract. You can just tell that basically the sentiment from the meeting is positive. They've agreed to talks about
Right.
the, lowering and eliminating of tariffs. Trump said, we're going to get to zero tariffs and hopefully zero other barriers, non-tariff barriers.
That'd be good.
That'd be great. The EU said they're going to buy a bunch of soybeans, help out those farmers that Trump wants to subsidize. Like
a lot of soy over there in
1929,
Europe. A lot of soy in Europe, for
Yeah.
sure. A lot of soy boys in those socialist countries. Well, two things there. One, Bob, why does the president have the right to set tariffs in the first place? Isn't this sort of an antiquated idea that this one guy, due to national security reasons, get to basically take all of America's, us customers, we're the customers,
Right.
he gets to take us hostage and I have to pay more because Trump wants to start a war? Why doesn't Congress have control of that? They have control of the purse.
Well, Congress used to have control of this, and then once upon a time they gave it up to the executive, hoping that they could use their power to eliminate all tariffs when we began to switch. Because we used to be primarily funded the government through tariffs.
Right. Well, that was
Way
before an
back in-
income tax.
Right. But now, we switched to just individual taxation, individual theft, but
Individual extortion.
individual extortion. Yeah, but this was a power held by Congress, given to the executive so that he could hopefully lower the tariffs. That power has stayed with the executive, and now you have Trump who's using it across the board to raise the tariffs. So again, like we talked about in prior weeks here on the podcast, Congress has got to get a backbone. You see these Republicans, the ones that you love to come out from under their shell every couple weeks and shoot an arrow at Trump and dive back under. Bob Corker, Jeff Flake. I like Ben Sass, but he's one that does it as well.
It really is.
They come out now against these tariffs.
Yeah.
Why don't they just, get on the floor, make a speech, rally everybody, and take that back? Write something into law, take the tariff back from the president, and write whatever tariff in that you want. But they won't.
I wish that was the case, but it really speaks to the power of the podium that the president holds.
Yeah.
Where, because the reality is Paul Ryan or Corker or Orrin Hatch or Senator Mike Lee, if they want to do this, then they have to get on stage and they have to trade blows with Trump, which they've basically everyone in modern American politics has proven to be incapable of. It's not for a lack of brains or a lack of trying. It really is just a lack of that it quality that Donald Trump has that made him so successful in the campaigns. That ability to just snap you with a crooked Hillary, to just hit you. You know what I mean? Hit you with low energy jab. He'll get you, and his supporters will be relentless. And you're going to lose that battle. That's just, no matter how right you are, you're going to lose that battle. And so I'm really interested to see with these midterms, and especially with the economy, is because there's always been a debate. Like, I tended to think, and I think so do you, elections, people, it matters a lot what's in their pocketbook. They vote with their purse.
100%. 100%.
That's sort of what I remember in school vaguely. I'm not going to pretend that I'm citing scientific data here, but I vaguely remember, sort of being studies done on people voting with the economy and voting with their purse. Trump is a populist president who very much got involved not just because of the economy, but because of cultural issues.
Mm-hmm.
Do those cultural issues, are they strong enough to weather a failing economy? Or does a failing economy finally get those, not necessarily people who are, strictly MAGA, there are always going to be people who that's their team, but sort of the in-between voters who decide to vote for Trump because they didn't like Hillary.
Yeah, I don't know. That's why I'm saying he has to keep the economy strong, or those people who did vote for him over Hillary are going to see put it this way. I think anyone that the left runs, particularly talking 2020 now, presidential challenger, is going to be more desirable than Hillary, but still not a preferable candidate. I mean, if you think of any of the matchups that are potential, I mean, Joe Biden sticks out as possibly the best, and he would have all the baggage of the Obama years, which Trump would love to run against.
He would.
Elizabeth Warren, I mean, Cory Booker, any one of these people, you can see Trump hitting them and it's sticking worse than anything that sticks to him. I mean, another tape came out today, another porn star, another Playboy playmate, and it doesn't matter. He's got 40% of the country locked in, and then there's probably 12% that are willing to stay on his side because the alternative was Hillary. And now it's going to come down to, has Trump done enough in 4 years where they're going to tolerate the craziness because the alternative is still not super desirable and things are going kind of well. I think if you take the things are going kind of well out of it, then they'll go for the slightly not desirable Democrat over Trump and all that he is.
I also think it depends on which... I also think it sort of depends on what kind of platform the Democrats plan on running.
Right.
Because
I mean, one of these candidates could want to run multiple different campaigns, and I think some of them will be winning, some of them wouldn't.
Right. I mean, so, Elizabeth Warren's certainly a far lefty, but she's sort of out of touch. She's a Harvard cocktail party,
very out of touch,
elite person. I mean, when you watch her interviews, she just kind of comes off as that. It's not natural. It's not a Barack Obama. It's not a Bill Clinton.
Neither is Cory Booker.
Yeah, it's a little bit more rehearsed. It's a little bit more. Yeah, sure.
He just was saying how when there's a moral situation, there's no middle ground. You're either on the right side or the wrong side, and he was equating that to the decision on Kavanaugh. And he said, "Complicit in evil are those who disagree." That's a direct quote.
Yeah, I mean,
he doesn't have the charisma of Obama to call half the country complicit in evil and get away with it.
No, and well, Barack Obama, we didn't talk about this, but last we saw of Barack Obama in South Africa was sort of trying to wheel back this identity politic craziness, because the fact is Barack Obama is not an identity politic guy. He's a center-left Democrat corporatist, right? I mean, he's just like a Wall Street guy.
I think he had to embrace the identity politics. Well, I think he embraced the identity politics as a way to win. He saw it as a winning strategy, and it was.
Sure, I mean, he created his voting bloc.
Right.
But once he got in, he very much governed as a center-left Democrat.
Yes, he governed as a center-left Democrat, but his rhetoric, as a center-left Democrat, I don't know. He was the most left we've had in.
Huh?
Barack Obama? I mean,
no,
okay, not
I think that's
policy,
a little too much.
Social issues and his rhetoric and his.
I mean, Obamacare was.
I think his evolution from 08 to 16. You could say 08 he was more center-left Democrat in how he ran. But by 16, it was full identity politics, full left tactics. Yes.
I don't know if I agree with that. I mean, it's sort
of.
of.
The transition of Obama over those 8 years is actually remarkable.
The only identity politics.
About that, he wouldn't get elected today.
The only identity politics thing that I can really that comes to mind is Black Lives Matter, and it's sort of kidding ourselves if you don't think that the first African American president is going to come out and speak up against Black Lives Matter, which at the time wasn't as sort of far left as they have been in recent years.
Right. Right. No, sure.
I think
that was when they were coming out.
I think that's looking through a lens of history, sort of counting
that's looking
now.
at it in 2018 with full recognition of what happened.
Right.
I guess. Yeah. Okay.
But either then, so you have that wing of the party, which is sort of Kamala Harris again, their sort of identity. Then you have the people who more and more. I think I just saw Joe Crowley give a speech, who isn't relevant anymore, right? But he's a big Democratic guy. There are mainstream Democrats who want to run on abolish ICE. They want to run on abolish borders.
That wing of the party, that Bernie wing,
that's it.
They won. I think they've won. And I think I've said here before that 18 and 20, barring the economy, Trump's going to win going away, because that is so. People inherently understand that that's wrong, and they're willing to take Trump's, everything that is Trump for that. Um, you know, I think it was James Comey just the other week tweeted out a plea. Did you see that? It wasn't even a week. It was about 3-4 days ago. Tweeted out a plea. He basically was he tweeted out one tweet that's saying everyone needs to vote for Democrats in the upcoming November election. That was one.
As good Republicans are one to do nowadays.
As good James Comey, who
George Will.
pretty much, you could argue, guaranteed Trump won the election. Good James Comey there. Now flipping sides and selling books to the same.
Yeah, what is it? Biggest con, one of the best cons ever. You get to completely let down half of the country, install a Nazi collaborator, and then they buy all your books.
But he tweeted out everyone needs to vote for Democrats in November, and then shortly after he tweeted out, basically cautioning the Democrat Party, saying, in so many words, don't run to that super far left. Please try and keep your sanity. Stay mainstream in this election.
If they stay mainstream, they'll win.
I might try and scroll back in his feed here, but yeah, begging them, please, 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 don't embrace what you want to do and what you have been doing, and just jump far left. Be pro-ICE or anti-ICE. Want to abolish ICE. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez want to free healthcare for all, free housing for all. Just promise a socialist utopia and play the identity politics game, because you will still get clobbered if you do that.
Yeah.
And I don't think they're going to wake up to it. I don't think they can turn the ship around. I think Bernie had all the success that he had. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is riding a little wave here. And
little wave.
The base.
She's riding a big wave. She's everywhere now.
Yeah, fair enough.
She is becoming the face of the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
She really is. And
and if as soon as Hillary lost, the face was Bernie.
Mm-hmm.
And you could argue, there's those Elizabeth Warrens and Cory Bookers and Kamala Harris and from New York.
Schumer?
No, the woman. What's her name? The senator from New York.
Gillibrand?
Gillibrand, thank you. Kristen Gillibrand, who are all going to run for president. They don't have a hold on the base anymore. They aren't driving the base. They are beholden to the base, and the base
That's a good point.
is going left and left and left, and they just have to respond. Kristen Gillibrand, oh yeah, we're gonna abolish ICE. We're gonna rethink it, and then the vote comes up on the floor, and they all vote no. They put that to a vote, and everyone voted no, because they don't actually believe that. The base wants it, so they have to throw them the red meat, and especially with Trump, when by the time we get to November of 18 and November of 20, he knows he's going to drive that wedge, and he's going to go a little more right, and they're going to go way more left, and he's going to be able to win again.
I was going to say, isn't it interesting how you made a good point? The left Democrats now are sort of beholden to that loud base, and listen,
it's a minority of their base.
It's a minority, right? Part. But it is the loudest part, as the minority, as these minority freakout groups are. But it's interesting to, compare that to the other side, which Trump leads his base to what, whatever Trump does, that's what the base is for. Any tweet, that's what the base is for. And the Democrats, it's completely the opposite. The Democrats are trying to hold their politicians accountable, even if I don't agree with their policies, while Trump is not being held accountable by his base. They're just letting him go ahead, carte blanche, here's the white card slip, sign the check. And
I didn't think of that.
It's really interesting. It's an interesting little.
No, that's very interesting.
Yeah.
What the base says, the Democrat politicians do and follow. What Trump says, his base follows.
And it's also sad because it's sort of, you want it to be like the Democrats. You would like the base to control what the politicians do. That's sort of how it's supposed to work. It just sucks in this instance that the base of the Democrats are fucking crazy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, you're right. Here, I've pulled up that Comey tweet.
Yeah.
3 days ago. Democrats, please, please don't lose your minds and rush to the socialist left. This president and his Republican Party are counting on you to do exactly that.
Exactly.
America's great middle wants sensible, balanced, ethical leadership.
Dude, this is
James Comey sounding like he's going to run in 2020.
No, it's going to be Michael Avenatti.
Oh, God.
No, but you know what's weird? And I'm totally open. And maybe I'm crazy. And I'm totally open to me being crazy, whatever.
Sure. Very possible.
But
I've hung out with you on weekends.
You would think. I was going to say, this weekend you saw me and you got to chug a couple of beers down at McGillen's in Philadelphia. Me and Bobby got to hang out at a bar that was founded in 1860, where they used to ruse about freedom and liberty right before the Civil War. So
was it really?
Pretty cool. Yep, they have the big sign on the wall, 1860. They have a bunch of photos and stuff. So Anyway, tangent. You made me lose my thought. Oh, what I was gonna say is, did you see Donald Trump troll Comey and Brennan and all these former national security people by taking away their national security clearance?
Yeah, let's talk about that.
I've seen a lot of national. So I obviously follow a lot of people smarter than I am in the national security space.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that you just gotta let experts be experts sometimes. I'm okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
They were freaking out to this. They were, I can't believe this is unprecedented. I'll do it. But if you think about it, why the fuck does John Brennan need security clearance?
Right.
He doesn't work at the CIA anymore, and all he does is talk shit on Trump. So
exactly.
If I was Trump, I'd be like, "No, dude, I think it's a perfect way to troll him. I think it's so funny."
And that's what Paul Ryan said. They asked him, he was like, Paul Ryan, what do you think about this? See, I think it is unprecedented in the sense that, he wasn't proposing a policy change where when you're done in the administration, when you're done in whatever allotted, elected, or unelected position you're in where you have a clearance, that you then lose it when you're done.
Right.
He was specifically targeting a couple different people, Comey, Brennan, Clapper.
Yeah, I mean, these annoying people who have just been blowing smoke and just.
I don't think
you don't think he should? You don't think he should revoke him?
Oh no, I think he should. But he should
okay.
change the policy. I'm saying he's targeting specific people, but then again, that's too much nuance for Trump. He just wants to toy with people. He wants to troll, and he does want them to remove it. But Brennan, here you go. I got another thing for you.
He's the most bloviating asshole on Twitter, bro.
You see all the time on CNN, an unnamed national security source. How could it? I mean, and it's, with these clearances, it's not like they're able to access all this up-to-date information. I guess the argument for the clearances and not getting rid of them was, administrations come and go, people come and go in office. You could have a clearance, no longer need it, and then within a short amount of time be back in that position in that office where you would need it again. And instead of going through the process and checking credentials, they just leave you with it, which is an argument, but I mean, not a good argument to just, I think, taking it away from people. But
sure.
Brennan leaked the dossier to Harry Reid. Comey leaked to the New York Times from what he wrote on his laptop while on the job. Clapper lied under oath to Congress. McCabe lied 3 different times and faces criminal referral. Peter Strzok says he wasn't biased, and Rice blamed Benghazi on a video. If they still have a security clearance, of course they should lose it. That was Jim Jordan, and he's not wrong.
No. Also, with the whole John Brennan, because part of what this was with the freak out, right? Well, I saw a funny tweet. It was like when Sarah Sanders announced the revoke of clearances, all of the mainstream media gasped and said, "My sources!" Oh my god! No, I can't get started. Where are we going to get stories? But there's been a lot of talk about how we need to respect the dignified men and women in our intelligence agencies, and how we should never ever question their motives. And how dare you? These people wake up every single morning, they pray to the flag, and they go to work to unbiased, and they just go and to defend our country. And that sounds cute. That sounds cute in the America that I want to live in, the America, the shining city on the hill, but it's naive.
Exactly. If you know anything about history.
Because if you know anything about history, and we're going to talk about this later, the CIA has been getting America in trouble since it was founded in the 50s.
I mean, There's a beautiful quote, if you saw it, from the Sunday special that Ben Shapiro puts on with Eric Weinstein this past week.
Sure.
Talking about the intelligence agencies, and he was going through, I mean, all of the known, proven, factual things that they've done. Like writing Martin Luther King letters and trying to get him to kill himself or get someone to kill him.
Running guns to drug cartels in Central America.
Right.
Faking false flag attacks in the Gulf of Tonkin.
Yeah.
Overthrowing, the prime minister of Iran and installing the Shah. Like you said, giving drugs to inner city gang members and then arresting them. Basically fueling this drug war. I mean, there's some faking intelligence on the weapons of mass destruction. Right? That's where this comes from. I mean, even Iraq War I, the Gulf War. We are told that Saddam Hussein were taking babies out of incubators and killing babies. Not true. All made up.
Right.
So this idea that I'm willing to trust the CIA, I'm willing to trust the FBI and all this stuff, but I'm not willing to have blind allegiance. And when something smells like bullshit, it's probably bullshit. And
Right.
all of this blowing smoke up the intelligence community's ass that they're these great saviors. Sorry, I don't think so. I don't believe it.
Well, you know what totally has given me pause is when you look at the people that formerly were running these agencies. They're now hysterical little girls on Twitter, and John Brennan.
They really are.
Who voted for a communist, a card-carrying communist, over Jimmy Carter in that election, is now going to talk to me about treason because Donald Trump says nice things about Putin. Okay, you know, and General Michael Hayden tweets out, "Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, OMG!" 3 big all caps OMGs to every story that Trump puts out there. Okay, these people don't look very stable, you know. I mean, Trump doesn't look stable either, but these are supposed to be the head of the CIA, these spy masters, and these people doing things across the globe and in all these affairs, and they're freaking out like little girls on CNN and on Twitter. So, you know, no, I don't have to blindly trust any of these intelligence organizations. Frankly, I think there's too many of them. I think they're too big. I think they're too unverified and unaccountable to Congress.
Well, you saw there are reports where
they were spying on Congress.
They were spying on the oversight committee, which is in charge of overseeing the intelligence services. They got caught spying on them. So they were spying on the senators in charge of making sure they don't spy on anyone illegally. you know what I mean? It really is a game. And it's so funny, again, because you'll explain this to liberals and be like, yes, they're corrupt. The government's corrupt. Okay, so we need to go with war to Russia? You want war with Russia or something? They're like, no, well, Matt, the intelligence communities, you really don't trust the intelligence communities.
It's like, look up the Church and Pike commissions from the 70s.
Who's that?
That was the last time there's been a real full accounting of what's going on in
Okay.
It's one of those things where someone tells you, it's like Rotterdam, when you're like, wait, there was tens of thousands of young British girls raped in Britain in the last 15 years, and that was covered up by the police. It's like when you hear something like that, you're almost like, that can't be true, and then you look it up and you're like, wow, that's true. No, look up Church and Pike commissions in the 70s and what they uncovered, what took place. It was the last basically real congressional digging into of our intelligence agencies, and what they found was what led to a big reeling in of them, which I don't have any evidence. They could be perfectly law-abiding and doing great things, I'm sure they are, but there's also a very large chance that they're not following laws, that they're acting outside their bounds, and they're doing things that we wouldn't approve of, because we don't have insight to it.
Yeah, so this is the deep state.
It's perfectly American and within the bounds to question the deep state, to question our intelligence agencies,
right?
Because we don't know what they're doing.
They posit this questioning of intelligence agencies as traitorous,
as treasonous.
How could you ever listen? Russia meddled in the election. You and I have talked about this. They meddled in the election by way of making Facebook groups and sowing dissent across America. Whether or not they influenced the election enough to actually get Donald Trump elected is highly debatable. I would say the letter by James Comey.
That's not debatable.
I would say the letter of James Comey would say. I think James Comey's letter probably affected the election more 100%. Than the Russians did. Right.
They came out and said that all of the attempts by the Russians, when there was attempts, did not affect a single vote in the election. That direct line in the independent report.
And you know that I'm not a fan of Russia. I'm clearly not a fan of Putin, right? I mean, money laundering, killing of journalists, invasion of South Ossetia, invasion of Crimea. He's a KGB thug who was in West Berlin and basically has risen the rise to dictator. Okay, but the meeting with Trump and Putin, you know, I really thought about this because I do like to think that America is right, on the right side a lot of the time. I like to think that, and maybe, again, I'm naive. But that meeting really was moving the dial towards peace. Okay, I'm for peace. The one thing I can't stand is war. I'm against war. And these guys in the CIA have done nothing but get us into war my entire life. So, you know, cry me a fucking river, John Brennan. I don't care about your security clearance. You're the guy that was in charge of these drone bombings. You know the drone bombings where, like, people are getting bombed at weddings and, like, little kids, like, heads are flying off? Or this is all John Brennan approved, where he says, oh, well, collateral damage. Sometimes you need to break a... Basically like Stalin. Sometimes you need to break a few eggs to make an omelet.
Make an omelet, yeah.
Yeah, so, again, he has dead kids on his hands. Not Donald Trump. And that's something I'll say nice to Donald Trump. Now. Well, now he does, true. True, but he doesn't have the wherewithal.
Strikes are ongoing.
He doesn't have the wherewithal to understand.
Well, Tom Woods, a great libertarian.
Love Tom Woods.
A really great listen. He's got just an interesting perspective.
He's just a libertarian dad. That's really what he is.
Yeah, he's but I mean, smart principled.
Harvard.
He was saying that, and I thought it was interesting. I mean, he didn't think the Helsinki summit would go down in history, but he thought it was one of the, not the most historic or memorable or whatever, meetings between countries and presidents. Mm-hmm. But he said it was, in his more than recent memory, the biggest, like you said, the biggest summit and meeting and agreement between large nations.
Say effort towards peace.
Effort towards a de-escalation and at least mouthing peace over a hardening of lines and tensions, and it's interesting the contrast. Like, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I don't think it's unfair to say.
Always follows a conspiracy.
but I don't think it's unfair to say that the mainstream media is much more interested. If it wasn't Russia, take the Russia hysteria out of it, right?
Let's use Iran.
No, that's what I was just about to contrast to. Okay, Trump meets with Putin, and yeah, Trump's in the bag, Putin's bag. He's an agent. Take all that out of it. Okay, they had talks. Trump, didn't rhetorically treat him the way that we're used to a president treating them, the way that frankly he should have. Mm-hmm. Okay,
yeah.
Okay, he backed off completely rhetorically.
Didn't challenge him on human rights and stuff like that, for sure.
Right.
These are valid criticisms. Valid criticisms, for sure.
Right. But the media gets more angry at that balk and that lack of hitting your enemy than they do when he tweets in all caps at the president of Iran that we're going to obliterate your nation like nothing the history of the world has ever seen before. In all caps. He makes a threat of war at Iran, and they go, oh, look at that. That's kind of weird. But back to Russia, where he tried to make peace.
Well, I think it's even worse than that, Bob, because it's not that it's not that they get mad at the balking and the friendly. They get mad at even the attempt, the consideration that we might be friendly to this guy. That even contemplating that is so out of the wheelhouse of accepted diplomacy at this point, because in their view, the Facebook ads that are attacking the United States, that's an act of war. That's what they're. I'm just leveling with you. That's what neoliberals think. They say right now. They said that Russia is planning another attack on American elections. This is an act of war, and the president doesn't care. That's where they're coming from, and for you and me,
that's hysterical.
I mean, that just doesn't wash. It just doesn't wash for me because, like you said, someplace I would really fear going to war, Iran. Okay.
Someplace where we're much more likely to go to war.
Not cool. Not cool at all. And yeah, they sort of are okay with that. Well, who's also a little bit okay with that, and I saw some fun tweets, is John Bolton, the guy who, when he was admitted into this administration as National Security Advisor, I said, watch out for the hawkishness on Iran. John Bolton has wanted that war. He's been begging for this war. He's been pleading for it. And Trump, possibly tweeting while he's on the toilet at 11:30 at night eating a cheeseburger, he might get his wish. So that's something to be careful about, because we don't want to go to war with Iran, man. I know Iran is this bad state. I mean, the FATF just released another annual report, so they're sort of the intergovernmental body of the United Nations that deals with money laundering and terrorist financing. They released a report saying that Iran has failed. So basically, sorry, it's a little confusing. It's FATF.org. And basically they set the standards for how you should set your monetary policy and banking policies to prevent terror financing and money laundering to these foreign terrorist groups, or FTOs. They came out and said that Iran has not complied and that they failed. This was just released on June 29th. So, and obviously Iran does fund terrorism.
You're saying because they didn't pass these certain policies that they're funding terrorism?
No. Well, I'm saying that it's not like you can be mad at Iran. It's not like Iran is just this neutral actor. Like, Iran is funding.
They're not. They're the largest state sponsor of terror.
They're funding Shia militias in Iraq, right? Because they very much see Iraq as some territorial integrity, right? They fought a brutal war with Iraq. I remember reading, just another random tangent, but so in 1980, I believe it was, Iran and Iraq went to war, and it was Saddam who launched the war because Iran was weak from this revolution that had just happened the year before. And I had to read this great graphic novel that, I know that makes me sound like such a nerd, in school, that won a prize, called Persepolis. And it was sort of this little girl's perspective of the revolution and the Iran-Iraq war. And it's just so mind-boggling to see demonstrated, even though they're cartoons, that, 1978, you have a bunch of teenagers listening to rock and roll, smoking cigarettes, hanging out at the restaurant. Then 1981, you have full Islamist control of a government. Women are covered. And Iran, due to the failing economy, I mean, they just went through revolution. They had no money, right? All these poor people. They have children to defend Iran, right? To defend Iran, you must defend the Holy Land, all that. They have children strapped with bombs walking into minefields in Iraq, right? And this is in the span of 2-3 years. And so the Iranian experience and their history and their politics is so topsy-turvy, and things can switch so quickly. And that's why I'm pretty optimistic, honestly.
I'm very optimistic about Iran
With
if we don't do something first.
If we don't do something first, correct.
Because their population is so majority young.
They actually, President Rouhani...
It's like 40% under 25 or something like that.
Right, exactly. And, President Rouhani is considered a moderate by Iranian politics standards, right? Again, the way Iran works is they have, I believe it's parliament. They have parliamentary parliamentary elections. And, but all the candidates have to be selected and approved by the supreme leader, who right now is Grand Ayatollah Khamenei. So he's a moderate, and young people and the richer classes like him, because it's 2018. Young people in 2018, they want to engage with the international culture. They want, you go on Snapchat, and maybe this is a weird sort of analogy, but something to do. And I ask anyone who's listening to this or watching this, go on Snapchat and zoom out to the map. And click anywhere. Just click anywhere in the world that you're interested in and click the Snapchat stories. And you'll see that basically all young people are the same. They want to have fun with their friends. They want to engage with the world. They like music. You know what I mean? They like art. They like learning. And so it's getting increasingly more difficult in this interconnected world we live in to have an Islamist theocracy. Right? I mean, that's why we're seeing protests with women's taking off their hijabs, forced hijab. Meanwhile, in America, we have someone who's unabashedly from Brooklyn leading the Women's March in her hijab.
But, it's extremely difficult to have any kind of repression when you have the amount of access to other cultures in the world that we have through technology. Like, there's a reason that China has internet, but it's severely blocked because people look up Tiananmen Square and what's going on in New York City, and they probably wonder why it isn't happening there. So
right, exactly.
I mean,
kids in Iran, they're 17 years old. They're probably listening to Drake, thinking, "Why the hell do I have to deal with this?" And Iran has always had like a large, again, their culture goes back thousands of years. I mean, they're Persia. Right, they got this rich history of art, intellect. I mean, it really does suck because I really wish I could visit Iran if it wasn't like dangerous and if they weren't a theocratic regime, obviously. Right. But that's what stinks about this stuff, because if you go to war, we're not going to war with the mullahs. We're going to war and going to inevitably kill people who don't want to be involved in war in the first place. And that's why I think rhetoric like this is pretty damning, because Iran's actions aren't that of people who aren't afraid to fight. They are in Syria. They're in Lebanon. They're in the Palestinian territories. Right? We just saw this past, I think, 2 weeks ago, 2 Belgian Iranian internationals were arrested in Paris. They were given over a pound of explosives and a detonation device by an Iranian diplomat to Austria, who was caught.
I was just gonna say
he was caught fleeing to Austria because he has diplomatic immunity, which is so crazy to me that you could give people weapons and explosives and that you would still have diplomatic immunity.
Right.
But I mean, they were going to a sort of like pro-Shah, pro-Persia, right? Because now we live in a weird part where history and current politics intermix, where this guy who was kicked out by Khomeini in '79 is still walking around thinking he's like the rightful monarch of Iran. He's on Twitter tweeting at Hassan Rouhani. Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say that, Trump's rhetoric, while I think is
it could be a ratcheting of tensions like North Korea. Who knows? But with him I don't think there's any strategy. I personally don't believe this is strategy. I think this is
I think
him.
that was just he got a briefing that morning from people and he decided to fire out a tweet.
Yeah.
But the thing is, what I wanted to say was that it's not unprovoked. Like you just said, they're a nation that really that acts the way they want to, and they kind of stare you down and put the ball in your court. Well, since Trump was elected, but used to buzz our ships in the Gulf right off the coast of their country. They would come close to our ships with smaller ships, our Navy vessels, and like you said, they haven't not been active in recent weeks. They had that plot to blow up in France that was just detected, and then there's been a ton of rhetoric coming out of the country. They had threatened to block off that Gulf and all the oil shipping through what's that strait? The Strait of Hormuz.
Strait of Hormuz, yeah.
Yeah, they threatened to close that. They get, a couple weeks ago, I didn't read much into it, but I saw this. I have a couple things written down here. They got caught prepping cyber attacks versus the United States. And then finally, just in the last week of July here, Khomeini threatened mother of all wars with the United States. And then 2 days later, you get this Trump tweet. So it's not random, but again, it's not good.
And I don't know if the strategy is good, because I had a great Middle Eastern politics professor in college, Ross Harrison. He's a graduate professor at Georgetown. He goes to these Track 3 diplomacy meetings. He's written for the Middle East Institute, all this stuff. And what he would explain is, in the Middle East, certain identities matter more depending on what you're trying to accomplish. So if you're talking about the Palestinians, then you're very much pan-Arabist, right? Then we're all Arabs. We need to come together as Arabs or as the oppressed people and fight back. Or if you're Iran, you might get an Iranian nationalist, I think, where the United States and the West has overthrown our government before and we need to do this. Or of course, Islam. And in Iran now, what I don't think what we should be doing is giving Khomeini a lasso to sort of get more constituents over to his side, right? Because when you say things like, let's go to war with Iran, people in Iran are like, well, fuck you. You know what I mean? Like, that's just the natural...
Right, and then they're more
that's just how it
inclined
goes.
to fall prey to his rhetoric.
And then they're more prey to say Rouhani... and they're more, exactly, prey to say Khomeini, well, I don't want to go to war with America. I mean, I should follow my leader. It's just how people are. And listen, Iran definitely has some valid grievances, which really sad, honestly. I'm really disappointed that we didn't go through with the JCPOA, because Iran was just starting to see benefits economically from those sanction reliefs, right? They were starting to see, they wanted to become a trade hub, a transportation place, and what these protests are for, right? The hijab wearing. I mean, there are some social issues obviously being coming to like the fore, but
no, their economy's hurting bad.
But what they really were oppressing is, you just got all this money from the American government. Why are we funding the Quds Force in Syria? Mm-hmm. Why don't we spend that here? Why aren't you helping our poor? right?
Iran first.
Make Iran great again is essentially what the people are wanting. We took away the JCPOA. We re-put sanctions on. We're hurting their economy. We're going to be hurting their people, and I don't think it's going to get the Iranians to change their tactics. I really don't.
It's not going to make the Iranians change their tactics. The Iranians didn't change their tactics before the JCPOA, and they weren't going to change them after, which is why I'm glad we're not in it anymore. But I think it is going to make the people realize, and I think they have realized, the common man in Iran, that, yeah, they did just get a huge pallets of cash from the Obama administration, and what did they do with it? They used it to fight in other countries in that region.
To fund
terrorism. Fight the United States, to fund terrorism, to prop up their own regime and line their own pockets. And the people are around looking like, yo, what about me? What about this country? So I think you're going to continue to see these protests like you have been seeing, women taking the hijab off and leading protests in the streets, real feminism.
Real feminism, exactly.
And you know, you just got to hope that
I just got sick to my stomach.
That large majority block of young people.
Mm-hmm.
You got sick to your stomach? Why?
I was just thinking of that video of the Women's March where guys were getting hijabs wrapped around them, men.
Right. Thinking that's empowering.
Men. Yeah, exactly. And I just got sick to my stomach thinking if I ever saw you go to a Women's March and put on an American flag hijab, the Ombudsman Report podcast would cease to exist.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I'm not one to lose friends or change friendships over political ties. I have friends that are liberals, but yeah, we wouldn't talk after that. No, but I mean, you just got to hope that large population block of young people in that country will take over and bring some sense back to it, and I think they will. I don't think it won't be bloodless, but I think it'll happen.
I think they will. You know, if you pay attention online, you can find some really great Iranian writers and speakers who they're Persian because they're before the revolution. They're not this Iranian subject, but you can. I followed a couple secular bloggers, and they're a lot of fun. You should really look into Iran. I mean, anyone who wants to look into the history of Iran, I mean, it's crazy. It really is like a blockbuster, movie. Some of the shit that we did. So, yeah, go learn some history, people. God damn it.
Yeah,
I'm tired of the one having to do this shit. Gets tiring having to read. Yeah, read my. I actually was just reading something to Congress, one of those policy proposal papers that think tanks spend like thousands of dollars on, but no one ever reads in Congress. Mm-hmm. But it was pretty interesting, for sure, to talk about Iranian foreign policy and defense. You know, because we have bases all around their country, American bases all around their country. So when you start looking into it, obviously,
on every side, from every angle. Yeah,
we do. So America isn't blameless, but two wrongs don't make a right. So, and that's the lesson. Two wrongs don't make a right. I think that's a good lesson to end on.
Fair enough. I'm gonna wrap it up. I think we did good here.
Yeah, for sure. Why not? I mean, I'm trying to think. Did anything else really bug me? Oh, just because I have like two minutes. There's been a lot of controversy over the James Gunn firing, and sort of, it's been blowing up on social media. These, celebrities making jokes about, whatever the subject is. In this case, it's pedophilia, and I just think it's really sad because one of the ways I got attracted to the right, if you could say that, when I first was getting into politics. Remember, I got into politics like 2014, 2015, and I thought, I was a liberal, right? I was like pro-gay marriage, pro-pot legalization. If I think we need a health safety net for the bottom and the poorest in our society, right? I didn't know too much about politics back then. But what attracted me to the right was that the left was over there playing this identity politics outrage mob game, and they didn't look like they were having any fun, and the right was having fun, and the right was making jokes. And it was, the stuff that I like, where nothing's off limits, it's just a joke, stop it, okay? And I really hate this path that I'm seeing mainstream right-wing people, and some conspiratorial right-wing people, I won't mention them, but going down this path of, we're going to judge you by a tweet 5 years ago, and we're going to read it with a straight face and just say, that's it. So you believe this now? So you made a joke about pedophilia, so you're a pedophile? I hate that, and I really just think you're going to lose the election if you go down that path. If you become just as cringy as the social justice warriors
I
It's
agree.
not going to
I
be
don't
good.
think we're at the point where you can say the left is unfunny and the right is following them down that path. I
No,
mean,
I think they're
name
following
names:
down that
Mike
path, man.
Cernovich, you know,
This
um,
Ryan Fournier, I mean, Kyle Kashuv has done some of this stuff. I mean, Jacob Wool obviously is the
I'm not
biggest
seeing
idiot on Twitter.
serious, actual legitimate people that are conservative or
Right.
Republican
But this is how
that
it
are
starts.
playing this pedophile
No,
game.
no,
I
but
think
this is
no,
how
but
it
no. I
starts.
think this is just like everything else. This is the reaction to the left. This is the reaction to 10 years of Roseanne Barr makes a tweet, gets fired. Well, then we'll pull up some old tweets from
Yeah.
James Gunn and throw that in his face.
Again,
This is all scalp for scalp. This is retaliation.
two wrongs don't make it right. And I really, I don't really have a political home as it is. And I mean, if that keeps happening, then Jesus Christ, I gotta go even further away from both sides because I can't deal with any of that, social justice snowflake shit.
Libertarian Party 2020. Let's see who they run.
We'll see. Yeah,
Green
listening to
with the shoe on
Tom.
his head.
Yeah, listening to Tom Woods and Scott Horn and Dave Smith. Well, they certainly make a compelling argument.
Fair enough.
All right, Bob, that's it for me. This has been the OR Podcast. Again, my name is Matthew Sparrow. You can follow me at Planet Politico. You can follow Bobby over on Twitter at BobbyJPolitics. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube if you're watching this. Make sure to subscribe on iTunes or Google Play. Follow us on Twitter. Share the, get the word out. We do this
pass
every
around to your
single week.
friends.
Yeah, who knows? They might get a kick out of it and might learn something. All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Bob.